Okay, so I'm going to break out of my box and do something today that I kind of said I don't do, which is it could be construed as a review. I don't review stuff because I'm not qualified to review stuff. I don't know enough about stuff to review stuff. But I remember back when precision shooting was in its heyday. A fellow whom I respected at the time named Frank L. Murphy and another one named Dick Wright were known for the terms the good stuff, capitalized. They wrote articles and they referred to it and they used that phrase, the good stuff. And it can mean a lot of things. In my world, it means things that work. One of the things that we've always had a crying need for out in the field, those of us who load out in the field, watch that scale over there, by the way, because it's going to come into play here in just a minute. Is a good scale, and the argument has always been digital versus balance beam scales. I've got 20 scales. I got all across the spectrum. This is the scale that I use the most. It's an MXX123, which they don't make anymore. I've got one that's quite a bit more expensive than this, a Sartorius or something from old Will Smith, not something or another, I don't remember. And some cheaper and all points in between. Suffice it to say that this particular scale, which I've got grounded, I've got wires run to it and taped to the sides, that one has fallen off, to bleed off residual charges. This wire runs up to an outlet on the wall. The wire that's on here runs up to an outlet on the wall, and it's just screwed to the center screw on that outlet. And it's to bleed off residual potential buildup of static electricity in this unit. It's under a cake pan, which you can't really see, but that's a cake pan. It's been showed in other videos. Suffice it to say that in a temperature-controlled environment, this room, and if I keep that covered, it's a scale that stays pretty consistent. It's a lot more consistent than this guy. But where I'm going with this is that I'm always looking for scales to use on the range. I mean, I can't bring this out of this environment or it screws up. Just me moving around, it's sensitive enough that it's going to be bouncing from 95, 98 to 96, which is where it's nominally supposed to be setting, to 96.2, 96.4. This one is much less sensitive, so it doesn't bounce around as much, but it also is not accurate to the kernel. This one is accurate to the single solitary kernel. I noticed that right now that one is settled down at 95.98. I will pick up a single kernel of powder, which you can't see, maybe you can, and I will drop it in there. Oops. Try this again. A single kernel of powder. This is hard doing a single kernel. Drop it in. 90, oh, I ran over the scale. I have to cut that kernel in half with my thumbnail. The point, and measurements are always subject to inaccuracies. So, what we have here is, this scale is set nominally to about 96. I shouldn't have put that kernel in, because once it starts moving around, now we're bumping up to 4. I'm going to take a kernel out. Bring this thing back to 96 flat. Anyway, let's not worry about that. I do my weighing with a bunch of scale pans that are weighted with tape, as we've talked about and documented in other videos. But, to get back to my thing, when I find something that works surprisingly well, number one, I buy 2 or 3 of them, because good stuff tends to go away. Good things don't survive in the market, because markets are generally run by stupid people. And stupid people tend to crap all over in the bed that they live in. So, in this world, hype sells a lot better than fact. In simple fact, this little Chinese scale right here, I'm going to call it Chinese, some Chi-Com by Smartway, is an outperforming little bugger. Enough so that I bought 3 of them off the hated bane of my existence, Amazon. Every time I order from Amazon, I feel like I'm punching myself in the face. My face is getting calloused to it. But it is what it is. Unfortunately, Amazon is nicing us to death. It is doing things that other people don't do. I recently tried to order some inletting tools, for instance. They're out at Brownells. They're out everywhere. So I went right to the company. And what a kludge. It was like dealing with children. Go on our website and set it up. Well, I got on the website. I can't even figure out how to order the stuff. I spent hours. I emailed. I went back. Finally, I just gave up on the whole thing. I'm like, screw it. I'll go build my own inletting tools. I've been using these tools for over 40 years. I love the tools. They've always been a pain to get. I've got checkering tools from them. I've got inletting tools from them. But they're ridiculous to deal with. They won't pick up the phone anymore because it's the modern age, and they've got the kludgiest website. So that's my way of saying I'm ordering this stuff from Amazon because, bam, it's easy. So this little scale, I'm going to turn it on and I'm going to show you what it does. This is just a cute little thing. And it works. So I'm going to call it the good stuff. It's off right now. It's got batteries in it. I put a scale pan on it, one of my weighted ones. This was the base pan. No, it isn't either. It's 100.78 grains, but it does have a little piece of tape on it. It's not the base pan. None of that matters to you. I get all carried away. I turn it on. And it saves, the last time I used it, it was in grains. It's still on grains. It's now zeroed. It's tared. You can see that. I take it off. I take this 96er over here and I put it on. Let's see how close we are. That's 96 grains on this little 96.06. 96.04. It's possible I could settle this thing down. None of this matters. We're talking kernels of powder here. Weighing out on the field, well, this one has been sitting on this scale. I don't even know what this is going to be. I get 96.16. Notice that this scale is bouncing between 95.98 and 96, so I'll set this aside. This one's reading 96.12. I put this one over here. 96.06. This little 1299 scale is giving me readings closer than most of the scales that I've used. I go back to zero. My point to you is that if you can go out on the field and you can shoot better than this scale, you're a freak. Because I reload to the kernel. My personal belief is that a kernel of powder, in this case, this is Ritumbo, a kernel of powder is worth, if I remember it, I've got a whole chart, a kernel of Ritumbo is worth 3 feet per second with a 300 grain bullet. I've got notes from PPCs, from BRs, from 6x47s, 300 WSM, these are my mainstays. And a kernel, a single kernel of powder is worth from 2.5 to 5 feet per second. Now, forget about fast barrels, slow barrels, 98% of that is a function of the length of the barrel and the size of the chamber. The number of people on this planet who can make 2 chambers that are the same size diametrically is very low. Most chambers, even done with the same reamer, vary in size, so therefore you get, if a chamber holds 20 or blows the brass out to hold 20 or 30 more grains, kernels, not grains. Chambers varying in size. The scale over here, as I'm doing all this, is flipped at 96.06. Again, neither here nor there. I just wanted to point out. Now this scale has shut off, which is nice because that saves the batteries. You turn it on, you funk it up, boom. Done. Gone. When you're done, it's off. You put the little panty in there, you put it away. It's got a cute little magnetic lid on it, which is, oddly enough, is strangely satisfying. It goes shut, it stays shut. This fits in the range box as it is. It's a little bulky, it's oversized, but it fits. You can put more stuff in it. The point is, the stupid little thing works, and you're not going to outshoot it. At 1,000 yards, at 600 yards, I personally believe that it's important to relay it to the kernel. Because if you're good, if your gun is good, if your conditions are good, and if 3 or 4 kernels of powder creates 20 feet per second difference on the target, which it does, by the way, you want to solve all your problems with extreme spread, start weighing to the kernel. Forget about neck tension. Forget about a whole host of things, seating depth, what have you. If you'll weigh to the kernel, you can start actually seeing and evaluating the effect of neck tension, the effect of seating depth, the effect of different primers, the effect of different things. But in the meantime, 99% of the time, that kind of stuff is lost in the noise. So suffice it to say, if you've convinced yourself, if you're at a place in your shooting life when you feel that you need to weigh down to the kernel or close to it, this little scale right here from communist China via Amazon, 2 things that make me throw up just a little bit in my mouth, is better than anything you can get for under 20 bucks. I mean, it's better than anything. It's more accurate than this scale right here by a wide margin. So, I only wanted to come in. It's so pleasant to use. I have one in my range box out front. I have one in my long range box, and I have a third one that I use as backup for when another one breaks, because I can go out on the field. I'm throwing charges. Diggity-dee. For anything under 400 yards, I just throw charges. I'm not going to support my position. I'm not going to even get into the whole argument of whether it's important or not. I can support the position, but it's just with my opinion. And when we go shoot, I'll beat you. But that's empirical evidence, and that's anecdotal evidence. Suffice it to say that once we realize that the powder is the fuel, it stands to reason that each kernel, it's like an ounce of gas, or what it's got a BTU output. It's got a certain number of joules in it. It's got a certain energy coefficient. And I assign to these kernels of powder 2 to 5 feet per second. About 3 feet per second in the size of this case. Sometimes I'll fill that case up and I'll take 5 of them and I'll take them in, and when I'm bored at home, I'll dump them out on a piece of paper and I'll count kernels. And I'll note them down. Sometimes if my fingers are really tactile, I'll take 5 at a time and I'll check, yep, 5, 10, because I can count really fast. No, this is BS. The point is that I've got a scale here that shows kernels of powder. This little guy right here almost shows kernels of powder. My point is that out in the real world, real life conditions, you can really use this little scale right here to achieve results that are unreal. So I don't know what kind of electronics are in this. I see this argument. It's so funny because the internet is full of people grunting back and forth about which is better and how and why. And whether they know their stuff or not is completely immaterial to me. I check scales the same way I check micrometers or calipers or run out of my lathe. I've set up half a dozen lathes. I've got 2 lathes set up out there. Now, I've never put a level on them. To me, I've learned putting a level on a lathe is for infants. It's for children. It's stupid. You go out and start making cuts and start jamming the thing into square. I don't care if it's sitting at 45 degrees to the gravitational force. I don't care if it's on the deck of a ship. I don't care if it's on the bed of a truck. If you can't make a lathe cut straight, you don't understand your lathe. My milling machine is on casters. It's an old Bridgeport, DRO'd up, but I do fine work with it, and I can roll it to where I want in my shop. Machinists just flip out. Like, now my kid's setting up a CNC machine as we speak, a 20-ton unit in his shop. And he's doing the whole thing where he's going to set it up and then he's going to go off and pour a pad and let it cure. And he's going to roll it over onto this pad and he's going to roll another machine. He's going to move these machines a time or two while the ground settles. This is a pain, but now we're talking numerically controlled machines with a computer override. He needs that because he punches a button and it makes parts and he walks away. I don't do that. I need to be able to take the machines that I have to hand and use them to effect right now, today. And that's what this video is about. I'm going to tell you that this right here is a useful tool. And if you can swallow your vomit enough to order Chinese goods off of Amazon, you're not going to find a better cheap little scale. This thing will let you shoot out to 1,000 yards effectively in the real world. And to take it to a point blank bench rest shoot and use it to check your loads, to check your thrower, you know, the best culver conversion in the world gets within about half a grain. And day to day, that increases to a grain. And there's a whole... I've written about this on the inner tube with documentation, but all I'm saying is people, don't listen to me, don't believe me, don't learn from me. Get yourself a scale like this, or, you know, get a good one if you can afford it. And now go out and throw charges till you're blue in the face, documenting them as you go. Build spreadsheets, build charts, build anything that you want. But test stuff, and you're going to find out that powder throwers are hideously inaccurate. They're about as accurate as this guy right here, which again is hideously inaccurate. This right here on a given day will show an extreme spread of a grain, with a great percentage of the loads being within a half a grain, and a usable percentage being within a tenth of a grain. But none of the statistics mean anything to me. I'm an ES guy, extreme spread, from the heaviest to the lightest. Nothing else matters. The fact that there's 64% in the middle that are within a small percentile is meaningless to me. All that means is that we have a system that is bouncing. That we have a system that is... This is why I have such a problem with any form of measuring. Measuring is a pain in the butt. So, I've used these scales enough that I now bought 3 of them. It's kind of like the Test long bore scope. I bought one. Dude, this thing works. I've got Hawkeyes. I've got $1,500 wrapped up in Hawkeyes and right angle lenses and upgraded lights. And I jammed a Teslock in there for $50 and I went, wow, this I can use on the field. I now have 5 of them. I have one in my long range kit. I have one in my short range kit. I have 2 right up here on the wall. I have one in the other room on my shooting range, because for me, at $50 a pop, it's worth it to have the backup. It's worth it to have it in different places so that I have it when I'm out in the field. And realistically, I have 5 of them. That's $250. That's a lot of money in my world or anyone else's world. But compared to losing an eye, you know, some people buy insurance. People buy all sorts of things. I'm saying $250 to have 5 Teslongs is cheap insurance, so that anywhere you go, when you change out components, when you jam one of these are Wildcat cases. These are interesting because I'm trying to make this big case shoot. I shot this during a time when I'm trying, these cases are, these are actually ADG cases, and they have, 20 firings on them, I guess. Which is, I don't know why I'm even bringing that up, except that I'm talking and it's better to have something in my hand. They're laying here. During the course of this workup, anyway, trying to set up a platform that will shoot this consistently. I've got 2, but they're kind of, you'll be seeing them. I also have 3 that are complete fails. I'm trying to build a lighter gun to shoot these big pigs into my quarter minute paradigm. I can't get this down to under about 3/4 in a lightweight stock so far. But a useful tool for doing that, because I have to go out on the range, shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and change components. And if I wreck a case, if some of these cases go bad and I've got to grab a couple more to throw in, having that Teslong there to run in and check my gap space, make sure I'm not jamming, not hanging up, not anything, is an important tool. In the same way that this, it could save an eye. I won't get stupid and say it could save a life, you know, that's way too PC for me. But I'm just saying, safety, 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 safety. This right here is a great item to have in your kit so that you can check your loads for safety. And I'm here to assure you that my 3 of these, as I've just tried to illustrate, are quite accurate. Accurate enough to keep you safe, which is one of the main points of this program. Enjoy the day.